Welcome to the Be Ready Utah virtual town hall. Thank you for joining us. And we recognize that we may be getting people joining us throughout the event this evening. And we look forward to having a participation and some good discussion here about disaster preparedness. My name is Wade Matthews. I am the Utah Division of Emergency Management Public Information Officer and Be Ready Utah Manager, our outreach campaign program. We are holding this Be Ready Utah virtual town hall this evening in recognition of National Preparedness Month in September, and wanted to use this opportunity to reach out to the public, record this discussion, record these topics, these questions and answers that we may be discussing this evening, and be able to share this at a later time as well on our YouTube channel. I want to begin, first of all, by introducing our panelists this evening. We have joining us a guest speaker this evening, Teresa Hunsaker. She is the Family and Consumer Science Educator from Utah State University Extension Service. And Teresa has been a longtime partner of ours, working with us on particularly the Be Ready Utah Expo, and prior to that, the Utah Prepare Conference and Expo. So that's a long-running event that we've conducted over the years to talk about emergency preparedness and help the public learn more about that. So thank you for joining us, Teresa. And our panelists, the rest of our panelists, come to you right from the Utah Division of Emergency Management, the Be Ready Utah section team, in fact. And we have Ken Crowdy, an outreach specialist, and pretty much everybody here has lots of hats, but Jeff Johnson, our school outreach specialist, Brian Stinson, also an outreach specialist, and he's our technical director this evening, running things from behind the scenes from in front of the camera, so thank you, Brian, for that. Marilyn Hoff, the earthquake lady. She's been with us for nearly 3 decades, helping people learn about earthquake. Yes, the ground shaking, earthquake preparedness, and earthquake safety. And last but not least, James Ray, an outreach specialist and our Be Ready business coordinator as well. So thank you all for joining us this evening. As we begin our discussion, and I kind of want to just take a deep breath, really, if you will, and we think about, look back a little bit on this year 2020 and what we've experienced, and whoever would have guessed the things that we've experienced. And feel free to panelists, pop up your microphones right now if you'd like to kind of join in on this a little bit. But we've had, to begin with, a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic, and then it was not a matter of if, but when. The earthquake, 5.7 magnitude earthquake, epicenter in Magna, Utah, that I think most of us felt. Teresa, up in the northern part of the state, did you feel it? Yes. Okay. So I'm pretty much sure we all felt that one. And then what? Wildfires, kind of some of the standard yearly disasters, if you will. Flooding in St. George, and then a high wind event. Our previous one was in 2011, and I think this one actually probably caused more damage. We're in the process of conducting a preliminary damage assessment to see if we qualify for another presidential declaration and FEMA support there. And then we've got bugs, crickets and box elder, drought around the state. I mean, just the year of all years, 2020. What's next, right?
Don't forget the bullfrog invasion and mask acne.
Okay, yes, 2 terrible disasters there as well. So were we ready for those? And I think each one of us was kind of affected a little bit differently, had different levels of impact from these different events. So we can come back to those events that we've had this year. I'm going to share my screen and just talk a little bit about, let's see here, some of the things we do at Be Ready Utah that that we can do for the public. All right. So as you can see there, just briefly, one of our goals is aligns with FEMA's strategic plan to build a culture of preparedness where we live, and ready the nation for catastrophic disasters like what? Well, we just talked about what we've experienced this year, the pandemic, earthquake, wildfire, flood, high windstorm, drought, crickets, bullfrogs, as Brian said, and what else will 2020 bring? And we are part of a larger team, including FEMA, part of a larger team whose responsibility it is to prepare the nation for these disasters. And those closest to the impacted areas are the real first responders. And that's all of us, individuals, families, neighbors, and local communities. So that culture of preparedness that we're trying to create is a national effort that takes everybody's effort and everybody's support. And so at Be Ready Utah, what we do here is public outreach. That's our objective. That's our assignment. Public outreach to help people here in Utah learn about preparedness. And we do that through presentations at schools, businesses, communities, and of varying topics: family disaster planning, communications, disaster psychology. We conduct outreach on social media, and you can find us at Be Ready Utah on Twitter and Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and more of those probably. Brian can talk more about those as well. We provide video training on our youtube.com/BeReadyUtah, where you're watching this video right now. We have some other great videos you may want to click on. Our Be Ready Utah Prepcast has a variety of preparedness topics, and our commercials, anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness. Those are a lot of fun as well. Again, Brian might talk more about those later. He's been the catalyst in making those happen. Our Be Ready Utah brochures are available on our BeReadyUtah.gov website. And the one on the right there, our Be Ready Utah online info brochure, you can find that there. Print that out, hand that out. It has QR codes for a lot of our popular brochures, our videos on YouTube, our commercials. And so there's some great resources there to help you learn more about preparedness. Because in a disaster, we don't rise to the occasion, we sink to our level of preparedness. And so how low do we want to sink? Are you ready for the next earthquake, pandemic, wildfire, flood, bullfrogs, whatever the case may be? So, all right, a little bit of an overview right there of what we do at Be Ready Utah. Now, we have our various pillars as well that some of our Be Ready Utah section are in charge of. And so maybe we'll start with you, Ken, and let you talk a little bit about what you do at Be Ready Utah, and maybe if there's anything preparedness-wise you want to mention as far as some of these disasters we've experienced this year with some of your experiences. Take a few minutes and just share with us this evening. And we'll ask everyone else to probably just turn your cameras off, and we'll come back to you.
Thank you, Wade. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. And thank all of you for joining us on this virtual webinar tonight. Boy, Wade hit it on the head. This has been a strange year. And a little bit about myself. I've been an emergency manager for Sandy City for about 10 years, so I've had some experience there. Was deployed to a couple of presidentially declared disasters, Hurricane Charlie and Hurricane Francis, and learned a lot while I was down there. And I've had quite a bit of experience. With Be Ready Utah, our team, by the way, is one of the best. We've got people on our team that I think you'll find are expert and are willing and able to help you in any way we can. One of my roles is to be the state VAL, the Voluntary Agency Liaison. And so when the Emergency Operations Center is activated by the state, I coordinate with all of the volunteer organizations. For example, the American Red Cross and the Red Cross, the churches that we have in the area, Habitat for Humanity, and others as well. There's just a whole bunch of volunteer organizations that we have, and I'm kind of the go-to person for them. And when we need volunteers, then I'm the first one the state contacts, and I know the contact, not only the contact information, but I've got a relationship with those that head up these volunteer organizations. Another thing I do is work with the State Citizen Corps Council. Many of you know that the Citizen Corps Council consists of several pillar programs, CERT, which is Community Emergency Response Team, Neighborhood Watch, Volunteers and Police Service, Medical Reserve Corps, Fire Corps, and also the Animal Response, Community Animal Response Team, the CART program. And so we've got those programs actively involved in our state, and I kind of coordinate with the state coordinators on that as well. My role with Be Ready Utah is community outreach. And I suppose the basic thrust we have with community outreach for disaster preparedness is four things: make a plan, get a kit, be informed, and get involved. And I'm sure that we'll probably have more discussion about each of these from each of the team members tonight. But those are the basics, and they're simple, but they're profound. Making a plan, just having the contacts that you need to be able to contact, meeting places, escape routes, teaching children how to call 911. All that can be a part of your plan. We'll get into more detail about the kits and so forth later on. But I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of idea about what I do and how glad I am to be a part of our team. Thank you.
Absolutely, Ken. Thank you for being a part of our team. We appreciate all that you do in those areas that you talked about, and as well as a lot of other things that you didn't mention that you also help with as well in Be Ready Utah and the Division of Emergency Management. All right, and we'll be able to take questions, and as we've got people on watching on our YouTube channel, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat window. We'll start taking those in just a minute. Ken will ask you to turn your camera off and bring Jeff on, and Jeff will give you a few minutes to talk a little bit about what you do.
Jeff Johnson. I've been with the Division of Emergency Management for about 13 years. Before that, I spent about 25 years as a law enforcement officer in northern Utah, and also rode ambulance for a couple of years before that. So enjoyed those times. At the division, I started out in the training and exercise section, doing a lot of the national incident management courses, and then moved on to what Ken was talking about, the Citizen Corps coordinator, and really enjoyed that. For the last 7 years, I have been doing a job that I absolutely love. And I'll ask you this right now. Is there anything more important in life than keeping our children safe? Can anybody tell me anything that they would think might make that pale in comparison? I've been in charge of the school readiness program, and I really, really do love this assignment. Our kids are in school 180 days a year, and they're in contact with the school staff for 990 hours a year. And that's a lot of time away from their families that somebody else needs to be concerned about their welfare and their safety. And so we've been trying to keep schools educated and motivated to make sure they're ready for anything that could come down the pipe that might affect a school and also the children that are in that school. You know, since Jefferson founded education in the United States for the citizens, teachers and administrators have had a duty to protect the children that are in their care. And we tell teachers and administrators they have a responsibility to anticipate potential dangers and to take precautions to protect students from those dangers. And we like to ask some questions to school administrators and to the public in general. We say, what are the legal and moral responsibilities do schools have to keep children safe? We like to talk about that. We say, do parents believe their children are safe at school? When mom and or dad drive up in front of that school, open those doors and let those kids out, or let the kids walk out and get on that school bus or walk to school. Do they believe their kids are safe? And that's a question that generates a lot of discussion in our society. And then the last question here is, are schools prepared for the unthinkable that they didn't anticipate happening? And do they have an all hazards management style in place where they can handle anything that happens on that day? It's very, very important that the schools are ready for anything. We like to ask school administrators some questions. We like to say, if circumstances dictated it, if they required it, could you house your entire student body overnight? Would you be ready to do that? You know, and there might be some contingencies there with no power, with no running water, and no phone or cell communications. Are you ready for that? Does your school have a memorandum of agreement and possess keys for an alternate shelter location? Can you evacuate your kids on a moment's notice, your students, the children, on a moment's notice, and have some place to take them and have keys in hand for that place, so you're not standing them outside in the rain, which has happened in this state. We have stories we tell where kids were evacuated for bomb threats into the rain and had nowhere to go. So, and the last thing we'd like to talk is do schools regularly practice reunification drills with the parents? Reunification drills are a tripod. They involve the staff, they involve the students, but they also involve those parents who are coming to get the children. And if the school practices the reunification drills and don't involve the parents, then that tripod is not really going to stand. We have to get the parents involved. We go out and do, Brian, if you could throw it up on the screen, we go out and do a 12-point presentation plan that we try to get schools to think about 12 things and be ready for these 12 points and these 12 different areas that they could be involved in. I'll just run through the titles of these really quick. Ryan, if you can just scroll it up a bit. But emergency operations plans and checklists. Do you have a plan in place, and do you have checklists? Checklists are priceless in that moment of chaos when, what do I do? And so you don't forget anything. We talk about basic school supplies, preparedness, the bare necessities. Do you have water, food? Do you have first aid supplies? Do you have, the kids have student personal preparedness, especially the younger kids? Probably doesn't apply as much to high school kids. You know, drills and exercises. What have you practiced for? You know, intruders, active shooters, bomb threats, hazmat, evacuation, lockdown, severe weather, earthquake. Obviously, they practice fire drills every year because that's required. So shelter in place protocols. What if you have to lock your school down from an outside hazard that could be threatening the school? That could be a hazmat or a weather or a SWAT incident near the school. Are they prepared to shelter in place? We talked a little bit about evacuation protocols. They need to be able to ready to leave and go to an alternate shelter location, and that'd probably be on foot. So we also talked briefly about reunification plans and the importance of involving parents. Number 7 on this list is pretty interesting. It's pandemic and infection protocols that we've been talking about them for about 7 years to the schools. And guess what? Welcome to 2020, right, Wade?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, welcome to 2020. Every school, every night on the news, the lead stories are what schools are closing, what schools are having problems. If you watch any of the local news channels, schools and the pandemic are right there in the forefront. And I think a lot of people will take this far more serious in the future. We talk a little bit about student preparedness and education, teaching students about the do's and don'ts and the whys of preparedness. We try to get the school ready for the National Incident Management System. If somebody sets up an incident command post, they can plug into that in their parking lot. Obviously, number 10 here has been a elephant in the room over the last few years. Active shooter protocols. We spent a little bit of time talking about that and make sure they're ready. We've been doing some cybersecurity issues because those are a 21st century threat. And the last thing we talk about on this list is staff training, best practices. Having a prepared and trained staff to make sure that all of the staff in the school can contribute and be part of the solution and not part of the problem on that day. So those are kind of the 12 things we talk about. Like I said, I started out with this, I'll end with this. I don't think there's anything more important than keeping our kids safe, our children safe. I believe parents and grandparents believe their children are safe when they are dropped off at school. I am going to say we are working very hard to make sure schools are ready for all kinds of things that they may not have been ready for in the past. And we're trying to get them to think a little outside of the box and take those extra steps and make sure that at the end of the day, the kids come home to their families. So back to you, Wade.
All right, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that. You mentioned a lot. There's a lot going on there, but a lot of important work in trying to keep our students and faculty, parents, teachers, whoever's at the schools safe at any given moment. All right. Thank you, Jeff. Teresa Hunsaker from USU Extension, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here with you tonight. And I appreciate the invitation. I'm kind of the fish out of water person here on the agenda today, but I do appreciate it. Utah State University is the land grant USDA designated university here in the state, and there's one in every state, like University of Arizona out of Tucson is the land grant designated university. And what that means to the public and what that means to emergency preparedness is we try to take research-based information and get it out to the public in making our families and our communities more resilient. And in the case of a disaster or emergency management kinds of situations, we try to be a continual extension of the things that, in this particular case, the State Division of Emergency Management is doing, try to be a team member with them, because we are located in every county of the state, and that's the same for every other land grant designated university across the nation. So with that in mind, we are also part of a national extension disaster education network. So we're taking education and information from all the experience of the hurricanes all over the country, all of the flooding, all of the fires, all of that kind of thing. And we're part of a national extension disaster education network. So my background is in emergency preparedness to a degree. More of it probably is experience. I grew up with a dad who was a civil engineer and who worked with emergency preparedness for years and years. And I am so pleased that Utah State University has found this to be something so critical in our individual state, but specifically in our individual communities. We have a website, and I've brought that up on the screen for you to see a little bit about kind of who we are and what we do in terms of adding, not taking away in any stretch of the imagination what's already being done with Be Ready Utah and the Division of Emergency Management, and working with our particular families on a county by county basis across this state. So we have a number of different topic areas that we work with. Media outreach is one of our big ones, of course, just like Be Ready is, using media to get the word out as well. So our website is extension.usu.edu/preparedness. And then we have it broken down into individual areas. We have links and additional information depending on the particular category that you have, with fact sheets, with research information, with anecdotal information even as well. So one of the areas that we really get a lot of questions on is the response to food safety, such as the winds and the power outages. Tons and tons of questions came in, lots of radio demand, television demand. Canning is another one. In fact, just moments ago, Jeff was asking me for safe salsa recipes. So we look at the ways that we can help individuals be more resilient as they respond and react to the disasters that come their way, whether it's the financial, whether it's dealing with their insurance agency, whether it's just preparing safe meals with food that they're questioning out of the freezer that may have thawed, those kinds of things. So again, lots and lots of information that we have in the form of fact sheets, handouts, as well as the programming that we do. And then we have teamed up with Be Ready and the Division of Emergency Management to be part of the Be Ready Expo and conference that also was formerly known as Utah Prepare. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I do. And I'm just one of many in the state that are part of the preparedness and resiliency effort in this state. So thanks, Wade, for having me today.
Teresa, we're glad that you're here. We really appreciate the partnership that we have with you and your fellow USU Extension agents and educators and all of the preparedness expertise that you share as well. Before we go to the rest of our panelists, let's pause right here and let's kind of address some of the questions that we've been receiving from our viewers right now. And so we've been typing some of the answers back into the chat window, but Ken, why don't you pull your camera up first, and we'll just address a question that was early on as far as online CERT training, Community Emergency Response Team training. Can you share that with us, that's available and where at?
Yes, thank you, Wade. As a matter of fact, we had a webinar today on the hybrid, we call it the hybrid CERT program. 23 states now have actually adopted this program, and Utah is among the first. James Ray on our team, frankly, is one of the gurus behind this program. At any rate, if you go to www. Got to make sure I got it right here, onlinecert.org, and you'll get to the website that has all the information about the program. You can also register for the program on there. We advise people before registering to go to their own jurisdiction and talk to the person who runs the CERT program in your city. Usually that can be found at the fire department or somewhere.
Emergency management.
Emergency management, make sure that you touch base with them, kind of coordinate your registration with them. And the online CERT program, of course, provides for 16 hours of the lecture portion. And then there's another 12 hours that you have to have in order to complete the program. But that's done at your own jurisdiction's CERT program. With COVID, those in-person sessions are kind of being delayed and postponed. But you can go online today if you wanted to and start taking a lecture portion of the online CERT program. FEMA has approved it, and it's alive and well in Utah.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that information. Ken, good overview there. Yes, and good shout out to James for helping develop that right here in Utah. And thank you to Michelle for that question. Another question from our viewers on YouTube channel, Jeff Johnson, why don't you join us again with your camera? And from Floyd, do you have good techniques for inspiring dads and moms in developing a family emergency preparedness plan? And I think, that could be at home. It may be in reference to the schools that you've been talking about. And Ken, if we'll have you turn your camera off. And Jeff, how would you answer that question?
Well, I think that's the core of what we do here in Be Ready, Utah. And Wade, you can jump in on this because this is what you live, eat, and breathe. But we are all about motivating, inspiring, and helping people become more prepared. We have a plethora of handouts covering a variety of topics that help with personal and family preparedness. And then we go out and do presentations all along this line. We have some really great family preparedness presentations and that we share from one end of the state to the other. So I think there are a whole bunch of ways that we can help. I'd first tell you to join to get a hold of our website and get on there and look at all of the material that's available there. And then you could contact any one of us because that's what we live to do, is help people get prepared.
Yeah, and I will add that a little bit to that. Thank you for that. Basically, any time is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness. That's one of our phrases, our tagline in our new commercials on our Be Ready Utah YouTube channel. If you want to go watch some of those commercials, anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness. And that's how we talk about it with our kid, or how we motivate our kids and our family members, whether they're young or old, is to talk about it. Hey, guess what I did today? I fastened my water heater to the wall. You did? How did you do that? Maybe I should come and check it out. Or you come and help me do that too, please. Or talk to the kids about, your disaster supply kits, or making sure they understand the protective action for earthquake, drop, cover, and hold on, because they may feel it someday, or have in the past, March 18th this year, and talk about how would we respond if we had another earthquake. And so we can kind of make it fun, make some games out of it, if you will, so that when the real thing happens, it's not scary. But just talking about it's, you know, this is just kind of a just in case kind of a thing. We hope it doesn't happen, but if in case it does, we want to be ready. So, all right, go ahead.
I was just going to say, hey, we just had this big windstorm, and it tested a lot of people's preparedness, because at the peak of this, there were 195,000 households in the state of Utah without power. My neighborhood lost power for 3 days, and we had 152 trees down within 2 blocks of any direction of my house. And most of those fell on power lines and caused lots of damage. But I've been doing something kind of fun. I've been walking around talking to my neighbors saying, what'd you learn? What are you going to do different the next time? And doing a little bit of canvassing, then trying to put together a document of lessons learned from that windstorm. But the windstorm just in this last 2 weeks has taught a lot of people about the value of being ready and what it's like to go without power, not 1 night, not 2 nights, but 3 nights and more. I talked to people last week whose power was still out in this area, and there's a lot to be learned from just the windstorm we just went through.
Definitely.
So.
Thank you for that, Jeff. And as you are, Ken, did you want to offer something there as well? And then we're going to come to James next.
Jeff just brought up the windstorm. I just got a report from Anna Boynton. It's interesting that something good has actually come out of the windstorm. The Navajo Nation was in need of firewood. And so volunteer agencies got together. 500 tons of firewood have been delivered Saturday. Another 100 tons are being scheduled to be delivered this week. So 21 semi-trucks have been going down there. So here's an example of you take a disaster and turn it into lemonade, I guess.
Lemonade from lemons.
I wanted to bring that up.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Ken, for bringing that up. And then as James, there is James. I just wanted to mention Floyd's comment as well on our YouTube chat that yes, how do you get people to take action? And that's our whole goal as well, is trying to motivate people to take action towards preparedness as we go around and conduct our booths and presentations and through our social media. You know, if we've talked about something today that inspired you to go home and do that one thing, that's all we ask you to do. I mentioned fastening the water heater. If that's what you go do after this town hall, is go fasten the water heater to the wall, fantastic. Just pick something to do this week or next week or this month or next month to do towards preparedness. And so with that, James, we'll give you a few minutes to talk about preparedness in your area. And maybe you could answer this question in doing so as well about options for learning, getting medical training. I think you were putting an answer around that. Why don't you talk about that along with the rest of your points?
Yeah, so there's multiple sources for medical training. Within each of the municipalities throughout the state of Utah, there are CERT programs. The Community Emergency Response Team program gives basic disaster response skills in their training. And there are 2 modules of that training that is specifically oriented to medical, basic medical skills. Also, our local American Red Cross obviously provides lots of options for medical training as well. There may also be opportunities to coordinate with your local hospitals or health departments, as well as community learning centers within the various municipalities, as they sometimes have opportunities for medical training. I know here in the state of Utah, we have the Intermountain Center for Disaster Preparedness at the LDS Hospital, and they provide trainings often on various subjects, medical training being one of those as well. So hopefully that helps answer that question.
Yeah, we appreciate that question from Seth. So thank you, Seth, for that question, for joining us. And James, anything else you want to mention before we continue on there?
Not with that, but when you're ready for Be Ready Business, I'm ready for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So what is Be Ready Business? Well, Be Ready Business is the state of Utah's campaign for emergency preparedness for Utah's private sector. Let me just share something with you on the screen. Something that's kind of interesting is these statistics that you'll see throughout various sources, that after a disaster impact, 40% of small businesses won't reopen with the immediate effect. But what's also interesting is the statistic on the other side that says that 75% of businesses without a continuity plan will fail. Our efforts with Be Ready Business is trying to get businesses to develop those business continuity plans so that they can have the tools necessary to be able to do what they need to do. It comes down to the bottom dollar. Businesses won't be able to stay open if costs are too high associated with the disaster, but there are some simple ways to be able to keep any of those problems from happening. So I want to show you just a couple of things that we have. Here, I'm going to escape from there. The Be Ready Business website comes right off of the Be Ready Utah webpage. So if you go to Be Ready Utah and you click on Be Ready Business, there are 4 resource libraries that we want businesses to know about. One is the website, and you'll see various tools and downloadable documents and various things that are there to be able to help businesses out. Another one is Pinterest. It's a resource library where there is information there readily available for the private sector is one of those, and there's various other subjects as well that are helpful that way. Also is YouTube. And on our Be Ready Business website, we have a YouTube channel on the Be Ready Utah YouTube channel, there is a Be Ready Business playlist and all sorts of videos. That's a resource library that empowers our private sector with at least some content, as well as many of the other content that we have on the Be Ready Utah YouTube playlists. To empower you to share that preparedness message and get employees ready. Another tool that we have, as well as is being developed, is a shared Google Drive, publicly available with kind of a toolkit for the private sector. And then also, we've got Be Ready Business on many of the social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just follow hashtag Be Ready Business at our Be Ready Utah profiles. So one of the trainings that we offer for the private sector includes the 14 points of business continuity planning. Each of these various points help enable that private sector entity to be able to start developing that plan and considering ways that they can approach all of these various topics. We offer training with those that we can come. We can also do one-on-one consultation in regards to some of these things if the private sector needs that. But we also offer a lot of tools for each of these subjects to enable any entity to start the process. Another thing that we do is build business private sector preparedness councils. Those are locally driven. The local emergency manager in each municipality would kind of be the touch point for that, in conjunction with the local chambers of commerce and the other partners within that municipality. It's a support network to enable businesses around that area to get connected to local plans, local issues, and to be able to get local support in many of the business continuity concepts. So there's tools that are being developed to enable local jurisdictional support in creating each of those private sector preparedness councils. But then also we want to help in any way possible of getting you connected to the private sector preparedness councils that are near you. With that, I'll turn the time back over to Wade.
Thank you very much, James, for that good introduction to Be Ready Business. We're going to pause before we come to Brian and Marilyn for a little bit of presentation. Let's jump back over to our questions in our chat, and we'll have anybody. We've got some discussion and questions about some good power outage options. And so Teresa, if you want to come back up, Jeff, anyone else maybe that wants to come back up and talk a little bit more about what are some power outage options, especially we've had a lot of people that were losing food in the refrigerators and the freezers with these 3 to 5 days or longer, some people, of power outages. What are some good options for backup power, and how do we take care of food, Teresa, in a freezer or refrigerator in a power outage?
Okay, well, I can address that first if you want me to address that first before we jump into generators.
Yeah, why don't you do that, please?
Okay, so the very first thing is you've got to know who some distributors are for dry ice. You've got to have some coolers on hand. You'll want to have some blankets to pack over and around your coolers if you need to. But here's a couple of key things. Full freezers that have been between 10 and 20 degrees and actually closer to 10 degrees will keep for 2 to 3 days easily without power and without the food even thawing much at all. Now, it depends on the food and it depends on how cold they were to begin with. And it also does depend on how full the freezer is.
Teresa?
Yeah.
That also, it depends on if you open the freezer or not. The more you open it, I think, lets the cool air out. And
right, yeah. Right. So that's one of the very first things is to keep it cold or to keep it closed. But you've got to have a thermometer in there to also watch the temperature and see what the temperature is doing. So there's going to be a point where you're going to need, unless you have a freezer that has the digital read on the outside, which most people don't go to that expense in a freezer. But yeah, you've got to keep it closed. That's one of the things. The refrigerator, if it's attached to your freezer, also needs to be kept closed. Many of the foods in the freezer will start to thaw, but won't be destroyed in terms of bacteria use. They might still have ice crystals. So if you can get them to dry ice or to a generator or somebody else's freezer or some kind of storage space or something like that, like a meat locker, if they have any availability. When there's thousands of us without power for 5 and 6 days, the meat lockers are full already, right? So anyway, food safety is 40 to 42 degrees, and then I've got to do something with it because I can't hold food, especially raw meat, at 40 to 42 degrees. That's assuming it's completely thawed at this point, for longer than about 3 to 4 days, depending on the type of meat. So again, there are resources available for you. There are tips and hints of what you can refreeze and when you probably shouldn't, when you would need to cook it and then freeze it again, assuming power is back on, or eat hearty really well if you've got sources for fuel, I guess. Right. Anyway, I do have a fact sheet on that. But the main thing is food safety, and again, keeping the food as cold as possible for as long as possible. And obviously the best option is if you can get a backup generator. So maybe now would be a good time to jump into generators.
Teresa,
yeah, Jeff,
wait,
did you go ahead?
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah.
I had,
and then Brian, if you want to jump on again, Brian, if you wanted to add to this conversation, go ahead, Jeff.
I had a 7-foot freezer in my garage and also a little chest freezer, and the chest freezer accidentally got disconnected from the generator sometime after I plugged it in. Somebody walking by caught the cord and unplugged it. We opened that up 2 days later. It was still frozen. It was still fine. We picked up all the packages inside. Some of the vegetable bags were a little not hard, but they were still frozen, and we have found that nothing in there really got damaged, but that freezer wasn't touched during those 2 days, never opened, and everything stayed fairly well. So it went about 48 hours, we figure, without power and still was fine.
Most things in the refrigerator will keep for, if you don't keep opening it, 24 to 48 hours. And in the freezer, 48 to 60 hours, our power was out for 5 days. We didn't get the generator hooked up because we kept thinking, oh, the power's going to come back on, the power's going to come back on. We didn't hook up the generator. We should have just done it straight from the start. But when we did hook up the generator, none of the food after 3 days had even thawed. So again, and we have 2 deep freezers plus the freezer attached to our refrigerator. So
it's kind of funny how we keep thinking, that power's going to come back on, and when it doesn't. And I'll tell you something, climbing into bed on the 3rd night with the power still out, that's an eye opener.
Yeah.
I did the same thing. Our power went out about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I waited till 8 o'clock that night, 14 hours to plug my generators in. And because I kept thinking, it's going to come back on.
Well, yeah. Right. Can I just mention one more thing, Wade? And I think that this would be really helpful for those who are listening to know. If you have a freezer that has got some space in it, and if it's just your standard, 30 cubic foot freezer, 50 pounds of dry ice, if you can get your hands on it, and I realize that's quite a bit of dry ice, will continue to keep frozen food for an additional 3 to 5 days. So again, knowing where a dry ice distributor is.
Awesome.
If I may throw into the, and I'm sorry, I'll make this very short. My neighbors went looking for generators, went looking for chainsaws, and went looking for dry ice on the day of when this drug into the 2nd day. And there was no dry ice available, and there were no generators available. And I mean, they went to IFA.
That's still good to know, because it may not be, it may just
Cal
be
Ranch
us that's
and
out
Costco
of power,
and every place they could think of to look for a generator.
It may just be us that's out of power, our own home, and that's still a good tip to know. Brian, did you want to go ahead and add something to this, and then go ahead and give us just a little bit of, about what you do as well, or some of your preparedness tips?
Okay. Well, I'm Brian Stinson. I do a lot of the social media, but just talking about generators, I love generators, but I kind of have a love-hate relationship with them. There's some safety things that we need to know about them. Make sure you do not run your generators indoors, even in the garage. You need to plug your appliances directly into your generator. Don't plug it into your house controls. If you want to plug your generator into your house, you've got to have a professional electrician do some magic things that they do to make sure that there's no feedback in the system, because you can hurt people and do lots of bad things if you do it the wrong way. So that's just some safety things for generators. Other things, a lot of times, one of the main things we talk about using generators for during a power outage is for your freezer or refrigerator. Make sure you have a generator that can handle that kind of load. Now, it's not just the running load, because when those things turn on, there's a big spike. And that spike could, if your generator can't handle that, that can knock your generator out as well. So make sure that the generator you get will be able to handle your freezer or your fridge. You might not be able to handle both of them at the same time. You're not going to be able to run your air conditioning and everything else. You're just going to have to be able to run just the essentials. And like Jeff was talking about, just probably for a few hours during the day. One other thing about generators, I like them. The whole point of them is to prolong how long the food is going to last in your fridge or your refrigerator. So it gives you more time to be able to cook it or dry it or whatever you need to preserve that. But eventually your generator is going to run out of fuel or whatever. It's going to break down eventually. So have contingency plans for not having a generator as well. So that was kind of my 2 cents on the generators.
All right, thank you. And thank you for running our meeting and your social media work as well. Appreciate those questions and discussions there. And we're going to have Marilyn come back up with her camera now. Oh, did you have one other thing, Brian?
I just want to talk about some of the other things as well.
Okay.
If I can just share real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is it's not coming up. Let's see. Is that, nope, this one. Okay. Are you all seeing my screen here? You're seeing, this is the Be Ready Utah website.
Yes.
You can go there, and on the right-hand side, this is a lot of things that I've done for Be Ready Utah. All these popular downloads. There's a whole bunch of brochures here on the right-hand side, all sorts of great information about emergency preparedness. One other thing that I do is I run the social media for Be Ready Utah. We're on Facebook and Twitter and others. So we put out about 4 pieces of information at a minimum every single day. We've got our videos, just all sorts of great information. We'd encourage you to share that with other people. And if you have questions and comments, please put them on there. We'd love to answer your questions or even just hear what you're doing so that you can share that with others. We're always learning as well. So share the things that you're learning about. And then one last thing, if I can run one of our PSAs real quick. One more screen share. All right, let's see. Oh, it's not coming up. All right, here we go. Are you hearing that?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, I've got a new bill if you want to trade.
Hey, sure, thanks.
All right. Let's see. Library card, chicken takeout, ice card.
Ice card? What's that?
Oh, sorry, ICE. ICE, in case of emergency. It's a card I keep in my wallet with important phone numbers. That way, if my phone doesn't work or I'm injured, someone else can contact my emergency numbers.
Huh. I should do that. Yes, thank you for sharing that, Brian.
All right. So that's, I've been doing emergency preparedness and teaching about emergency preparedness and researching it for about 13 years. And before that, I had a background in film and media. So that's something else I bring to the table. And I love to teach people about emergency preparedness.
Thank you very much, Brian. And you bring to the point the wide variety of expertise, diversity that we have here in Be Ready Utah. And we appreciate all that you bring to the table. And that includes the earthquake lady, Marilyn Hoff, ladies and gentlemen. There are some of you that have said hello to Marilyn Hoff in our chat window. How do I get a hold of the earthquake lady? So Marilyn, make sure you're not muted, and then we'll see. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you do and some preparedness tips.
Yes, hello and good evening, everybody. This is such a fun way to reach out to all of you to give these virtual training. And so you learn a lot this way. So thank you for being with us. Anyway, I am Marilyn, and I'm also known as the Utah Earthquake Lady. I was given that name 25 years ago by the Red Hills Middle School in Richfield, Utah. I travel all over the state giving preparedness presentations for schools, colleges, all types of businesses, senior, daycare centers, hospitals, fire departments, you bet, even churches and family reunions. So if you're interested in having a virtual preparedness presentation, let's get it set up for a group, your family, even at Christmas time, you're together and talking about preparedness. Let's remind everybody what preparedness is. And what it is, it's putting your emergency kits together. And I suggest have a grab and go emergency kit, not just for your car, your home, your office, but a grab and go, because if you receive a knock at the door, your family need to leave home because of fire in the area, well, your kits are ready to grab and go. And if you're lucky, they may give you 3 minutes is all. 3 minutes to grab what you need, and you need to leave now. And don't forget the house pets. So I suggest go online, bereadyutah.gov, and bring up the list, disaster supply kit, It's a list of, you're getting a shine in the screen, but it's a list of things you have at home already to add to your emergency kit. You do not need to go out and spend money. Start at home. Go through the junk drawer, the garage, the basement. Tell the kids to clean their rooms, and you will find things to add to your emergency kit. And make it fun. Give everybody a grocery bag, 15 minutes to go look for items from the list. And then after 15 minutes, lay out what you found and let the kids tell you why they have a pair of socks in their bag and to put in their emergency kit. So putting kits together, be creative is more fun. So get the family together and do a scavenger hunt. Then there's also, and then with my program, I also talk about the safe areas throughout your home, place of business, no matter where you are, how to protect yourself due to earthquake movement. You do not need to get hurt. You know, for many years, we've all had our fire drills. Well, earthquake drills is just as important. So talk to the family about fire drills and earthquake drills. And that way you won't have the fear of earthquake, have more knowledge. Also, in the if you look up bereadyutah.gov, you will get a list of things what you can do throughout your home. I'm trying to see in the dark here.
Is your power out, Marilyn?
Yeah. Well, I lost one that was supposed to be hazardous things what you can do throughout your home to make it safe. Not only make sure your water heater is secured, but you can secure heavy pieces of furniture, your wall unit, china cabinets, bookshelves, children's toy shelves, your food storage shelves, shelves out in the garage. Just make sure heavy pieces of furniture and shelves are secured. And go online. It will give you the information that you can do yourselves. And I talk about
Marilyn, I'm pulling it up for you.
Oh, thank you, Brian. I know I dropped it and I am in the dark. And so anyway, the hazardous home will talk about things what you can do throughout your home to make it safe due to earthquake movement. And so you see the bereadyutah.gov, and that is where you want to find all your preparedness brochures. Also, you will see a book, Putting Down Roots in Earthquake Country. Everything you should know about earthquakes here in our state. On the very back are other online resources to refer to about preparedness. So there it is. Read this book. Don't have the fear of earthquake. Have the knowledge, and it will give you maps, fault maps, liquefaction maps. It will remind you things what to do throughout your home to make it safe. It will talk about your emergency kits, your house pets. So this has a lot of good information for you to go through. So it's there for you. It's up to you to take action and teach your family. Read these things with your family. I also made a list. The reason why I suggest that you have a grab and go emergency kit, besides the 3 minutes they allow you to grab what you need. Well, I made up a grab and go list. Make up your own. This is not online. I just made this up. And what it is, it's a list to remind me. It's on my refrigerator. You can have it in your phone, a hard copy, because if you get that knock at the door and you're asked to leave your home because of fire, gas leak, any reason, then your brain will go blank, and you'll be grabbing things that you don't need, and then grab the wrong stuff. So this list will remind you what to grab. And first thing, I'm going to grab my purse, ladies. Guys, grab your wallet. And then you want to go to the medicine cabinet, grab your medication, and
The puppies.
On and on.
Good puppies. Oh.
What, Jeff? Oh, I thought Jeff had a question. So anyway, make up a reminder what to grab and take with you. And also don't forget the house pets, and lock up your home. So this is a good tool to make up for yourselves. And I'm also going to grab from that list my flash drive that I have all my important documents on this flash drive. My birth certificate, marriage license, my house papers, everything, insurance information, it's all right here. And all you do is plug it in and update it. So there it is, because you can take pictures of pictures on the wall and have it on the flash drive. So simple tool to have as part of your preparedness. And another item I'd like to show is a whistle. Something this small can make a big difference. So have a whistle with your purse, your key ring, lanyards with your work badges. Yes. And you can have this in your glove compartment, desk drawer. If you go walking, jogging, hiking, picnic up in the mountains, have whistles with you. Everybody should have a whistle. So the holidays around the corner, have whistles as stocking stuffers. Give everybody a whistle. And that's a good tool to have. Children's school backpack. Have it hanging on the outside of the backpack. Stranger danger. Hopefully this will scare the strangers away when the kids blow. And then as you go through your disaster supply kit list, it will give you the basics. Then put the special needs. Like I wear a hearing aid. I have hearing aid batteries. Don't forget your glasses, your medication. Children's baby diaper bags should be refilled always. Don't forget the house pets. Things like this are things we don't think of. And don't wait till last minute, or if it's too late to not be prepared. Just like this. Remember when COVID started? Oh my gosh.
There was a run on the store.
Oh my gosh, yes. I would come home upset because I could not find toilet paper anywhere. I thought I would have to go out to my grapevine and pluck leaves off.
Thank goodness you had your preparedness
supply. And so preparedness is water supply and food storage. Eat your food, drink your water, but rotate it. And make sure you have backup lighting and radios. And so these things are good to have on hand. Don't be without. And so preparedness is really simple. Start at home, do a scavenger hunt, and start your kits that way. Then go out and get your trial size shampoos, lotions, and add to your kits. And make a list what you put in that emergency kit. That way you're not hunting for the scissors. Did I put those scissors in there? It's on the list. Yes, it's in the kit. So making your own kits, being creative is, to me, better. And so let preparedness be part of your life.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Marilyn, the earthquake lady. And as we have everyone bring on our panel, bring your cameras back up. That, again, creating a culture of preparedness. That's what Marilyn is talking about here, creating a culture of preparedness. We're a little bit over the hour, but I think we're going to just take a few more minutes if everybody can stick with us. First of all, Madison says hi to the earthquake lady. We love you. So there's one of your fans, Marilyn. There's a couple questions that we didn't quite get to. One was, is Stop the Bleed training still available? And I believe the answer to that question is yes. And you can contact your local, someone can correct me here, contact your local health department, the U of U. Hospital system provides that training. And it's excellent, Stop the Bleed. It can save lives. We don't need to be afraid of using tourniquets anymore. And it teaches all about the proper way to apply a tourniquet, pack a wound, to stop that bleed and save a life. So that training is invaluable. It is still available, again, through U of U hospital system, state health department, and probably your local health department as well. There was a question about, is there something James, in talking about Be Ready Business, mentioned the Private Sector Preparedness Council? And this question, can't see who it was anymore now, asked if Jennifer, I think it was. Jennifer asked, is there something like the PSPC for families and neighborhoods? One of my thoughts, depends on where you live. In Salt Lake City, they have the Safe Neighborhoods, which is kind of something similar, where you've got a centralized meeting location and some resources to help each other out in the neighborhood. So that's something that you might consider if you live in Salt Lake. Ken Crowdy, you talk about neighborhood rapid disaster assessment that kind of could fit the bill for a neighborhood style private sector preparedness council, or at least awareness, looking out for our neighbors. I think community emergency response team also is something similar to that would help fit that need as well. Ken, do you want to just mention your neighborhood disaster rapid assessment really quickly?
Yes. When I went to Hurricane Charlie, I was impressed with the system they had down there. They had actually done away with block captain programs. Now, don't get me wrong, if you got a block captain program that works, that's great. But he was so upset with the fact that every time they had a disaster, a hurricane that hit, the block captains didn't want to be block captains, or they were dead or gone or whatever. And so they put together a program that just simply requires people to show up at a given place. They have to establish the chapel or someplace where they show up. And then it's all in a notebook, actually. And we can come to your jurisdiction, your city, your ward, or your group and talk about the neighborhood rapid disaster assessment system and explain how everything in a notebook. And once you have the notebook, you can organize all the volunteers that come in untrained, off the street without any pre-training, and do an organized assessment for any kind of a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ken. And we don't need to come to you personally. We can provide that training virtually. We've been learning how to do that through the COVID-19 pandemic. This town hall as an example, we could provide that training for you wherever you're at, for whatever group you may put together virtually, that neighborhood rapid disaster training. One last question from Michelle. Any suggestions about making a ceiling fan over a bed safer in case of an earthquake? And before, I'm going to open that up to anybody in the panel that wants to take that on as well. But I would add to that, as far as the ceiling, besides the ceiling fan, move any objects away from the bed that are over the bed, over the children's beds or your adult beds. Over the shelves might be there with books or knickknacks or toys or kids' trophies. You want to move those away from over the bed so they don't come falling off in an earthquake and strike us in the face or the head, cause injury. But any other thoughts on what to do about a ceiling fan?
My first thought with the ceiling fan is don't sharpen the blades.
Okay. Well, very good. All right. Anyone else have any suggestions as far as what to do about ceiling fans over the bed? Marilyn, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Ceiling fans have the tendency to loosen as they turn all the time. So you always should tighten everything. So it's always good to go up above and make sure it's off first. and and then adjust it, make it tighter. So the ceiling fan, you pretty much can't do much with it, but make sure everything's tight.
That's a really good suggestion. All of the hardware that's holding the light fixture, the fan blades, make sure all those screws and bolts are tightened. And if it's installed correctly to the manufacturer's instructions into some, you know, hard studs or joists, trusses in the ceiling, you know, that should help support that in a violent shaking situation.
And
again,
most
there's
of the time,
no guarantees, though. It's important to know the protective action: drop, cover, and hold on. If you're in bed, stay in bed, pull a pillow over your head, you know, get underneath some sturdy furniture, a desk, table, a chair. Know the protective action: drop, cover, and hold on. Jeff, go ahead.
I was just going to say, most of the time when those do fall, they don't fall any farther than the electrical wiring will let them fall. So they end up being suspended halfway between the ceiling, and that becomes an electrical hazard. But if the wiring is done properly, they're not going to usually, even if they come out of their mounting, they're not going to fall beyond the wiring, and it just hangs above the bed. So they very rarely come all the way down.
All right, right. Thank you very much. Okay, it looks like that takes care of all the questions that we have. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening via our YouTube channel, watching this live stream. Thank you to each of our panels, Marilyn, Teresa, Ken, Jeff, Brian, and James. Appreciate you joining us and sharing your expertise, knowledge, and skills with us. And maybe let's plan on doing this again sometime. It's been a lot of fun, I think informative, and again, this is available on our YouTube channel. Please watch and share, provide comments. You can put additional questions in the chats, comments and questions, and share on all of our social media accounts, and we'll try to get back to you and provide the information and the answers for you. Again, take action. Go home and do something tonight, tomorrow, this week, next week towards preparedness. Think about something you could do that would just get you one step closer, towards your preparedness efforts, towards your preparedness goals, to help you respond, survive the disaster, respond to and recover from disasters a little bit better through our preparedness efforts. So go home and take some action. Again, thank you all for watching us. Thank you to our panelists. Everybody have a good evening, good night, and we'll see you next time.